Hel- Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S5 5083B. It's not my fault. Belmoni, stop blaming me for everything. It wasn't my fault, it was yours for ducking. Kitty shouted back. Hearing all this noise, Tom doubled his cries so that William put his hands over his ears. Hey, calm down, you two, he pleaded. We got to stop him crying. Otherwise, both our moms will hear and then we'll get into trouble. Oh, and Dad is trying to rest, gasped Kitty, putting her hand over her mouth. I know, let's take him out of his chair, said Danny sulkily. He likes kicking about on the floor. So Daniel unstrapped the baby and held him for a few minutes. Kitty got one of his toys and jangled the big bunch of plastic keys in front of his nose until he tried to grab it and started to laugh. Phew, said Dan. Now I'll let him lie on the rug holding his toy. Everything will be all right. He put the baby down, and the room was filled with the sound of his contented gurglings. Kitty and William went back to trying to work out how the Dan should be. And Dan said he would go into the kitchen for some biscuits and juice. Then Kitty followed Daniel out to bring back a chair, and William took all the cushions off the sofa to stack behind it, making a little house. Minutes passed. Kitty came back and disappeared behind the furniture. William started to tickle her, and she got the giggles. Daniel was still in the kitchen, trying to get the lid off the biscuits tin. None of them could have dreamed what Baby Tom would do next. He had thrown his toy to one side and wanted to get it. A hidden camera would have seen the baby kick and lean more and more to one side. At last, he rolled himself on his tummy, where he wanted to be. For a short time, he lay there like a little frog, swimming in the air. Then he pushed himself up on his arms, which he did all the time, but something made him pull up one leg, then the other. At last, Daniel came back into the room, carrying a plate of biscuits. Still, William and Kitty were behind the sofa, trying to get a cloth to drape over the kitchen chair. I'll just go back for the juice, called Daniel. Have a biscuit? He stopped. Oh no, where have you put the baby? Kitty and William poked their heads up over the back of the sofa, and both looked amazed. He's under Kitty began, then stared. There was no baby on the rug, where she had last seen him. Frantically, the three children looked around the room, and there in the far corner they saw him, moving along the carpet. But Tom couldn't crawl. The surprise made them all gup at him with open mouth, like three goldfish in a bowl, and all the time Tom was struggling towards a table in the corner, covered with a lovely trailing cloth. Watch out, Kitty shouted, then dropped a plate of biscuits and ran across the room, tripping over a stool on the way. Goo goo, laughed Tom happily, loving his new freedom. He arrived at the table and seized the cloth in his little fat fist and tugged one of Mom's favorite china ornaments, a pretty lady in a Victorian dress, started to wobble and sway. It might fall on his head, shouted William quickly. Kitty shrieked at Dan. Daniel made a dive just in time to catch hold of the ornament that tumbled plop into his outstretched hands. William and Kitty started to clap, but it was too soon. The cloth fell on top of Tom, who started to yell again. Daniel was so worried about the baby, he didn't look where he was putting his feet. Fell over the other end of the cloth. The ornament flew into the air and crashed onto the floor. But by the time William and Kitty had run forward, Daniel had uncovered Tom's head. He was so pleased to see his brother. He started to shout with joy. Just then the door flew open. There were the two moms, Dad in his pajama with his red nose. Was all the dough snipped, Dad? What have you done? Cried Mom, looking at the Victorian lady who lay in pieces on the floor. Who broke that? It was my fault, Mom, said Dan, pathetically. Did you drop it? Demanded Mom. Yes, but I thought I could trust you, Dan. Look at all this mess. You're really nutty, shouted Mom, almost in tears. That's not fair, Mom, said Kitty. It was Tom who broke it, really, said William. I think you should keep out of it, Bill, said William, Mom, with a warning look. But, Mom, you got to listen, said Kitty. Tom did break it because he pulled the cloth off the table and Daniel saved it. But then he had to save Tom. Kitty's mom turned to William and demanded he tell her exactly what had happened. He told the whole story as simply as he could and was rewarded by delight on all the adults' faces. Are you saying, began Dad. Oh, that's so thrilling, said William's mom. My clever Tom, cooed Mom, rushing across the room, scooping up Tom in her arms. Who's a big boy then? Oh, yuck, thought Kitty. Why is that a baby gets praised for breaking something? Grown-ups are pretty nutty, really. William just smiled and smiled. There you are, said Dan, folding his arms. I told you it wasn't my fault. I'll tell you what, though. I think we all deserve a reward for teaching Tom to crawl. That was our fault. It's not my fault that they quarreled. Kitty had a habit she found hard to break. If somebody told her a secret, she just could not keep it to herself. It was as if her tongue was like a little red bird that would fly out of the cage without warning and chirp up the news. Mom said she wouldn't tell Kitty what she had bought Dad or Dan for Christmas or birthday because it might slip out. It wasn't that Kitty meant to tell. She would smile and whisper, I know something you don't know. Start to drop little hints, then big ones, and before too long, there was a good guess, and the secret was out. She didn't mean any harm. It was just all too exciting. The trouble is, there are family secrets and there are private things people say. It doesn't always do to speak when you could stay quiet. As they walked to school with his mom, William was telling Kitty what he liked and didn't like about different people in their class. There was a new boy called Jason Edwards, who was already very popular. William really wanted to be his friend, but Jason was one of these boys everybody likes because he's good at everything and very confident. I don't think he's even noticed me, said William. Never mind, William, you can always hang round with us, said Kitty kindly, which wasn't really what William wanted to hear. I don't always want to be with girls, and in any case, Rosie gets on my nerves. When she laughed, she sounded like a hyena. This made Kitty giggle, and William joined in. He did a few imitations of Rosie's laugh until Kitty was helpless, and his mom told him not to be silly. Kitty forgot all about this when she met Rosie in the clubroom. They talked about the school fair. Kitty asked Rosie which store she was going to volunteer for. I thought the throw the sponge, said. If we can persuade one of the teachers to sit there as the target, do you want to do it with me? I thought you had promised Aunt Anita to run a store with her, said Kitty, pleased. To be honest, kid, Anita is too shy. You have to shout out and get people to come along and have a go. It's no good just sitting there like a mouse. I suppose not. But I'll help you if you like. A break. Kitty stayed behind to ask Mrs. Watson something, so she was leaving the classroom just as Jason Edwards came back in to get something he had forgotten. Hello, how did you like our school? Then she asked. It's okay, said Jason. Listen, you should talk to William. He is really nice, and he would like to be your friend. Kitty, the blurted. There were a couple of boys standing behind Jason, two of the biggest and toughest in the class. They started to snigger. Oh, little Billy wants to be Jason's friend, said one of them in a squeaky voice. Jason was a friendly boy and secretly felt rather overwhelmed by the new school, but he hid it by seeming to be very cool. So he just gave a little grin, shrugged, and went past Kitty into the classroom. So now Kitty went looking for Anita. to tell her that she was going to do the stall with Rosie, so that Anita would have plenty of time to think of something else. "Well, why can't all three of us run a stall together?" her friend asked. "Oh, Rosie wants to do that funny wet sponge one, and she said you have to shout about it, and it's no good standing there quietly like a mouse." "So she says I'm like a mouse?" Anita asked, looking cross as well as hurt. Kitty nodded, then trying to make Anita smile, she added, "That's okay. Well, William says Rosie laughs like a hyena." "Huh?" Tossing a plate back over her shoulders. The bell went, and there was no more time for talking. They all trooped back into the classroom, and soon Mrs. Watson was telling them all about how volcanoes happen. And Kitty was just so interested. She didn't think about anything else. But when it came to the middle of the day, there was an eruption Kitty hadn't expected. Anita marched up to Rosie and said she didn't think it was fair that she had gone behind her back and decided Kitty should be on the stall, but that anyway, she didn't want to be with someone with an embarrassing laugh like a hyena. "Who says that?" Rosie demanded, folding her arms. "William," shrieked and Anita. William was standing nearby. When Rosie asked if he had said that about her, he nodded nervously. Rosie glared at Anita and William. "Well, I would rather be a big tough hyena than a stupid little mouse. And you're a mouse too, William. Otherwise you'd stand up for yourself when the boys laugh at you." "Who's laughing?" William asked. "Jason and all of them." "All them, 'cause they are all saying you want to be Jason's friend and he doesn't want to be friends with a wimp," snapped Rosie. The other children who were listening to the quarrel started to laugh, especially the boys. William went very red and shouted that he wasn't a wimp and that Rosie should mind her own business. "Well, don't you go round calling people names," said Rosie. "You call me a name, Rosie," said Anita. "I suppose you think it's all right for you." It was horrible. Kitty watched from a distance, then crept away. But she wasn't quick enough. William spotted her and came running after her, taking her arms. "Why did you tell somebody what I said about Jason?" he hissed. Then Rosie and Anita followed, and the three of them all stared at her with tight, angry faces. "This is all your fault, Kitty," said Anita. "It's nothing to do with me. It's your silly little childish quarrel," said Kitty, putting on her loftiest expression. But she knew that wasn't true. The others all went away, not speaking to each other or to her, and all afternoon Kitty had an uncomfortable feeling in her stomach, like she got when she had to go to the dentist after school. Kitty's mom was waiting outside the school gate with baby Tom. The William told her that he wasn't going to go home with them, but would walk along the high street to see his mother at the cake shop where she worked. He had done that before, so Kitty's mother didn't think anything was wrong. Kitty shuffled along with her head down, not speaking. From time to time, Mom would look at her, puzzled, and try to start a conversation. Kitty stayed quiet. "What's the matter with you this afternoon?" Mom asked at last. "Nothing," said Kitty, much too quickly, but when they got inside the house, she couldn't help it. She ran upstairs for Mr. Tubbs, brought him downstairs to cuddle, and burst into tears. Mom put Tom in his high chair with a pile of things to play with and took both Kitty and her teddy on her knee. Kitty told her the whole story, not missing anything out. "Oh dear. Well, it's all a bit complicated, but it sounds as if everybody was pretty nasty." "Yes, they all think it's my fault." "Well, whose fault do you think it is?" Mom asked slowly. There was a long silence. Kitty chewed Mr. Tubbs' ear while she thought and thought. At least she mumbled, "Mine." Mom nodded. She let Kitty think for a while, then whispered, "But you had taken the first important step to putting it right." "What's that?" "Owning up to yourself. Now the bravest thing comes next. I suppose that's owning up to them." Shook her head. No. They already know who did the tittle-tattling. What you have to do now is be very, very brave and say sorry." And Kitty said, "I know." That she's a pain. It was terrible news. It was the worst news. Kitty had heard that year. It made Daniel laugh and laugh until she chased him round the room. Uncle Joe and Auntie Susan were moving house to live this side of town. But that wasn't the worst thing. It meant that Melissa would go to Kitty's school. You'll have to look after her, love, said Mom. No chance. What did you say? I said I don't want to. Why not? Kitty thought, as she did so often nowadays, that the GUs were impossible. Grown-ups think that you have to like their friends' children. Worse, they believe that everybody in a family has to be friendly simply because they are related. And it doesn't work like that, as Kitty knew well, because nobody will like her. And I didn't choose to have her as a cousin, shouted Kitty, but you'll take her round a bit, pleaded Mom. Pretend you're a sheepdog and she's a sheep, sniggered Dan. That's enough, Daniel, said Dad. Anyway, I shall be very disappointed if you don't look after your cousin, said Mom in a firm voice. A month passed, and Mom spent the year a lot of time at Auntie Susan's house, helping her get ready for the move. They'll need a whole separate van for all Melissa's clothes and stuff, Kitty said to Don, who grinned. At last, the removal van did its work, and the following Monday, Melissa was to start at Kitty's school. Kitty's mom arranged to meet Auntie Susan and Melissa at the gate so that the girls could go in together. Kitty dreaded it. When she saw Melissa, she felt even worse. Her cousin was dressed up as if she was going to a party, although no one, Kitty knew, would choose to wear clothes like that to go anywhere. Hello, Kitty, said Melissa nervously. Hi, said Kitty, looking over Melissa's shoulder. You'll look after her, love, won't you? Smiled Auntie Susan as she bent to give Melissa a goodbye kiss. Of course she will, said Mom, giving Kitty a warning look. So the girls went into school together, or at least nearly together, because Kitty walked a couple of paces in front of Melissa, pretending she was in a hurry. Wait for me, Kitty, puffed Melissa. All the children started as Kitty led the cousin into their classroom. Kitty wanted the earth to open up and swallow her. She saw one or two of the children point to Melissa's shiny shoes and grin. This is our new girl, Kitty's cousin, Melissa, said Mrs. Watson, patting Melissa on the head. Now, everybody, I want you all to make Melissa really welcome. And of course, Kitty will take charge of her this first weekend to make sure she meets everybody and knows where everything is. Kitty cringed and went to her place without looking at her cousin. Of course, Mrs. Watson put Melissa next to her, moving Anita to do. This made Kitty angrier than ever. How dare her silly old cousin come to her school and spoil everything. At breakfast, all the children streamed out into the yard. Melissa stuck to Kitty's side like a limpet and complained loudly when Kitty said she wanted to go and swing on the huge climbing frame with Rosie and the other. That's stupid, she said. Come on, kid, said Rosie. Don't go, stay with me, begged Melissa. Rosie gave Melissa an unfriendly look. And the end.